All right, hello everybody. This is Don't Be Ridiculous, episode 31 now.
There we go.
31, can't believe it. Missed
A lot of these.
last week, but there's no shortage of stuff happening. So, got to get caught up on all the news. The major story for this week that we're going to have some thoughts on that we got to talk about is the Dolphins traded for
Chris Rock.
What'd you say?
I said Will Smith slapping Chris Rock.
That's right. Other than Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, which obviously is the number one story everywhere.
If you haven't seen SNL, they did a really funny skit last night where it was like a seat filler was talking to Will Smith. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, people should check that out.
Like, yeah, I'm crazy. It makes perfect sense because they portrayed Will Smith as just like, this is just
stop making fun of him. It was great.
This is just what I do in my everyday life, no big deal.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. What was the first word to talk about? The big.
So the Dolphins, in their infinite wisdom, to try to fix their team, traded for Tyreek Hill. They traded 5 draft picks, and they are going to pay him $120 million over 4 years.
Yep. It's all guaranteed, right?
No, it's mostly guaranteed. I think 70.
Yeah,
I think 70 million is guaranteed. So it's
70 million. All right, that's a lot.
Mostly guaranteed. So my initial reaction is, I understand what the Dolphins are trying to do. They're putting everything into this season to try to make it work and try to convince us that they have a quarterback. Even though it's clear to me that the team knows they don't have a quarterback and they can't. This is not.
Are they trying to convince us, or are they trying to convince themselves?
Well, no, I think they know. I think the Dolphins. My opinion is the Dolphins know what the deal is, but I think it's a desperate move made by a desperate team. I think the general manager knows that they have to make the playoffs. As I predicted when the offseason started, the Dolphins are probably going to take some swings because the general manager is trying to save his job. So this is the move that they made to try to win this year. We can talk about the length of the contract and talk about years going forward, but none of that really matters. This is just made for next year. The Dolphins want to show that they're worth something, so they have to make the playoffs. So this is the big swing that they're taking to try to accomplish that.
Yeah. I went because it's happened like 2 weeks ago. I've been all over the map in terms of what I think about this. It's one of those things where you see it and you're like, the Dolphins aren't ready to win the Super Bowl now. This is the kind of move you think like the Rams would make, where it's like, okay, they're ready to go. They're just, let's get this other player. Why not? Because we're trying to win it all this year. And it's like, you guys aren't. I mean, you like. If they make the playoffs, sure. There's 7 teams from the AFC get into the playoffs. So by that rationale, yeah, maybe. But I mean, they, a decent year and go 9-8 and not make the playoffs. I mean, the AFC is loaded. So, I just don't. It's like, do we really need to do this to convince her, to try to prove to people that Tua is good? And we were talking about this like earlier this week. What's your definition of success? Is it just making the playoffs? Because they almost made the playoffs last year, and it's not like Tua was all that good. So if they make the playoffs and Tua's like marginally better, like he has, I think Colin Cowherd was talking about this. Say he has like 23, 24 touchdowns and like 9 picks, and they win 10 games. Like, are you really going to be blown away by that? Like, short of him throwing like 30 touchdown passes and having several games where he throws like 300 yards and scores 30 points multiple times throughout the season, like I don't think there's anything he could do to change my opinion of it. And the other thing that I just find kind of, ridiculous about this is like, oh, he's got all these playmakers. All Tua's got to do is get the ball out of his hands. Well, I mean, to Tua's credit, he did get the ball out of his hands last year. And, like you saw it, we watched it. I mean, it wasn't that great. It's like Mike McDaniel. Yeah, he coached with Kyle Shanahan a bunch. Like, yeah, he coached with San Francisco. Was San Francisco's offense explosive? Like every now and then they'd open something up for Deebo Samuel or something. And I think the Dolphins can probably do that. Like the running game will probably be better. And like, look, even last year I could point to different plays that Tua made where it's like, oh, that was kind of a big play. Like, yeah, I think they could probably do that every now and then, and maybe a little bit more often because they've shored up the offensive line a little bit. But like, again, what's your definition of success? Like, I don't see how he's going to do anything that's going to make my perception of him dramatically shift. I mean, I don't know. Again, like I said, I've gone a bunch of different ways on this. I kind of think it's a lot to give up for the guy, and 5 draft picks. And also, I think in the last 2 years of this contract, you're really going to eat it because I think he's going to decline physically, and I don't understand how you're going to get anything close to what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid got out of Tyreek Hill for the time that he was in Kansas City. So if you don't do that in the first couple of years of the contract, then it seems like you're sort of massively overpaying for something that's not going to deliver. So plus they gave up 5 draft picks, and they still have their offensive line still isn't fully, shored up. And also I'd like them to have draft picks because they still need a quarterback. Like we know they need a quarterback. So
yeah. So I was listening to Mike Lombardi. He used to be an NFL general manager, and he's on a podcast called the GM Shuffle. And so he basically went over this move, and he basically said, look, the Dolphins made this move for yards after the catch. They know Tua is not going to be able to throw the ball 40 yards down the field. He's not a deep ball thrower at this point. And, he hasn't shown to be that in the NFL at all.
Well, let me put it this way. I do find it interesting when people say that. I think sometimes people may get a misperception of that because, like, if you wanted, I could find highlights of Tua throwing passes that are not necessarily somewhat far down the field, right? But those are few and far between. And the other thing is, when you watch his deep ball, there are certain quarterbacks that watch their deep ball. I'm like, oh, okay, he could do that all the time if he wanted to, right? But Tua's ball is kind of, I don't want to say it's like a duck that got shot and it's just sort of fall, but it's not like Russell Wilson. It's not like Justin Herbert. It's not like even the balls he threw in college before he injured his hip. You're watching it. It's like, it's not just that the receivers are open, but it's like the ball takes a little while to get there. So it's not necessarily that his arm is just incredibly weak and he can only throw the ball 5 yards. We know that's not the truth, but can he sustainably throw the ball down the field? No, we haven't seen that. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, so, basically, like, the Dolphins are going to be a run after the catch team. They're going to be based on the running game, just like the San Francisco 49ers offense was. They're going to try to get the ball to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and try to get them to do stuff after the catch. Okay, that logically makes sense. But what the other thing that Mike Lombardi said about the offensive lineman is, okay, the guard that they got, I think is it Collins? I can't remember. But
they got 2. I mean, the right. Armstead was the one, and then they got that guard.
Right. So he said that the guard, Collins, basically got his butt kicked all of last season. He wasn't very good. And Armstead's problem is he can't stay healthy. So he was higher on Tyreek Hill than he was on the offensive lineman. And if those two guys don't, make the left side of the offensive line pretty good, then all of this is meaningless. It really doesn't make any difference because he won't have any time to throw the ball anyway. So, I mean, the other thing is, like, so you're going to go all in, right? You got to make the playoffs this year. This is your move? Like, I just feel like it just feels like we're putting all our chips into the middle of a game we don't have much of a chance to win. It just feels like, you and not only that, so you're going to give up, you talked about the money later on. I'm not as concerned about the money. That doesn't bother me as much because the Dolphins aren't paying anyone anyway. Like, they don't have any high salaries on their team. So the money doesn't bother me because it's not like they're going to pay their quarterback anytime soon. So what bothers me more is that the Green Bay Packers traded Devontae Adams to the Raiders for a first and a second. Why do the Dolphins have to give up three more draft picks? Like, they basically gave up this entire draft that's coming up in a month for this guy. And it's just like, why? Like, we couldn't have gotten some, you couldn't get some decent wide receivers?
There's a pretty good wide receiver draft.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Dolphins are not in the position where they still need players. Like, I'm not excited about.
Exactly. If you need players, you need draft picks. So.
Right. I'm not real excited about the 29th pick or whatever it is in the first round, but you could trade down and get an extra second round pick if you wanted. Like, there's
in the first and second round, you can get there's guys there that can play. That's right. The third round, it gets a little sketchier, and then the further back you go, more sketchy. But yeah.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is, Brian Flores has got to be sitting in Pittsburgh going, why didn't you do any of this stuff for me? Where was my all-in move with trying to get, better players? They didn't do any of that.
Point. We talked about this. Okay. For any of the Dolphins fans who believe in Tua and they're all excited about this year, let's be clear here. When they went on an 8-game winning streak last year, why did that happen? Well, partially the schedule wasn't that hard, and also their defense played really well. And the thing you have to remember, in the first half of the season, the guy who's going to be their defensive coordinator this year was calling the plays. Their defense wasn't that good. Flores took over play calling for the defense in the second half of the year, and the defense was much better. Okay? So if you think the defense is going to be exactly the same or better than it was last year, I got news. I don't think that's going to be the case. They may take a little bit of a step back. And so that means you're telling me the team has to be led more by their offense. And if you watch their offense last year, I don't think that's a very good idea. Like, that's not an encouraging sign to me that they're going to have more success this year than they did last year.
Yeah. So you go all in on this move with a brand new coach in his first year, and you're just, it's kind of like I said, this reeks of desperation. It's a little bit like the Browns trading for Deshaun Watson, except Deshaun Watson actually can make your team better. Like, he actually affects whether you win games or not.
Yeah.
This move really doesn't. So, yeah, it just I feel like we're going to be sitting here next draft. Now, good thing is the Dolphins have 2 first-round picks and 2 third-round picks in next year's draft. So if this doesn't work or they realize Tua is not the guy anymore, they'll have some ammunition next year. But the only problem is, this is another thing, that I haven't brought up on here, but so this draft that's coming up, in 3 weeks or whatever, it's not a good quarterback draft, right? There's nobody who's like a bona fide superstar. And they're like, well, next year's draft, there's quarterbacks. Yeah, there's 2 quarterbacks that are supposed to be really good. They'll be taken in the first 2 picks. So the Dolphins aren't likely to be able to get one of those. So we could be in, this is a situation where, I hate to say it, we could be in for yay, the Dolphins make the playoffs, and then, or they don't, well, if they don't make the playoffs, it's a serious problem. But yay, the Dolphins barely make the playoffs, they get destroyed by whoever they play, and we're next year sitting in the same situation next year.
Yeah, where Tua is still the quarterback, and you're like, they're not going to sign him to another contract, are they? Like, that's one of those things that's like, I hopefully fan bases start to get a little more annoyed with this. Like, guys, you can't get very far if you don't have an elite quarterback. And if the team keeps trying to sell you on like, oh, we're just going to be solid everywhere else, it's like, that doesn't work anymore. So, I understand it's very difficult to get a quarterback. It's not that easy. Okay. But it's just, again, that drafting Tua over Justin Herbert is going to be something Dolphins fans are going to be thinking back on for a long time until they get another quarterback. Maybe that'll be faster than I think, but I was watching I sent you a YouTube video the other day, which was a compilation of pre-draft takes about Justin Herbert that you're listening to him now and you're like, oh my God, seriously? Like, seriously, you got like, okay. You know,
My favorite wasn't a Herbert. Well, it wasn't specifically Herbert take. My favorite was the Dan Orlovsky one on ESPN, where he said the gap between Tua and Herbert is pretty wide. Like Tua is significantly better than Justin Herbert is, and it's kind of comical, as it's at the same time that the general manager Mike Tannenbaum, who used to be the general manager of the Dolphins at one point, is like, you can't draft this guy. The injury is too dangerous. You can't do this.
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we could go on and on bashing our team all we want, but
Yeah, I don't think we really we're really that like. I mean, if I wanted to be the put rose-colored glasses on or give you like the positive spin on it. Okay, look, it's entirely possible that Mike McDaniel can scheme up some stuff, and the Dolphins could have some exciting plays next year. Okay, particularly if they're playing a bad team. All right. I mean, Tua played pretty well against the Atlanta Falcons. He played pretty well against Jacksonville. There's probably a few other games in there where he made some plays. So, like, yeah, maybe you get some of those, but against good teams, like, I just don't like the Buffalo Bills are. You want to talk about miles? The gap between something being miles wide. I mean, between the Bills and the Dolphins. I mean, the Bills have gone all in this year, as they should. I mean, I think the Bills. They should probably get to the Super Bowl, at least get to the Super Bowl this year. So, I just, maybe some exciting plays this year. So you got that to look forward to, and maybe they make the playoffs. But overall, the long-term outlook is just not, whatever.
Not great. So, we'll see how this goes. But you wanted to talk about the NFL changed the overtime rules.
So they changed the overtime rule for the playoffs.
Yep.
So now both teams get a possession, and if after the second possession, one of the teams is in the lead, then they win, and then if it's tied, then it becomes sudden death.
Right.
So I like this. I could understand if people were like they were okay with it the other way. I think this is fine. I mean, I think, look, you're giving the other team another chance. I think it maybe creates some more drama, because with the coin toss, do you want to have the ball first or do you want to have the ball second? Trying to think yeah, that's kind of the main thing, and then it just creates more drama. But Rich Eisen was really against this. And this was kind of the main point that I wanted to make about this whole thing. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I think it's kind of interesting. But I feel like I've been hearing for several years people complaining that there's a coin toss. Usually only one team gets the ball, and you're not guaranteeing that both teams get a shot to have the ball, right? I feel like I was hearing that for years, okay? And then the NFL changes this rule, and then I start hearing people saying, oh, this is ridiculous. Who cares? The NFL doesn't need to make the overtime absolutely fair. It was like, I feel like there were a bunch of people who were complaining about this for years, and now you're like against this. And then the other thing was Rich Eisen was complaining about the unintended consequences. He's like, well, the coin toss still matters a lot, because you're going to defer, right? Because you want to know what the other team does to make sure you know what you have to do to score. But then the first team that gets the ball, they didn't know that the second team was going to score a touchdown. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's called the sport. It's competitive. Like, you got to score points to win the game. There's pressure on you to put points up. Like, what is the problem here? The unintended consequences. There'll be more drama. There'll be decisions to get made. Like, what is the like? I can understand if you thought the other way was fine, but I don't really see what the big deal is with this. Like, it's fine. Like, what is the problem?
Yeah, listen, I would have been fine if they kept it the way that it was. It's perfectly okay with me. I don't think. It's one of those things it's like putting more teams into the college football playoff. It doesn't solve the problem. It just changes what people complain about. So now let's go back to that Kansas City Chiefs Buffalo Bills game, because let's face it, that's the reason the rule changed, right? So Kansas City goes down, scores a touchdown. Buffalo goes down, scores a touchdown. All the Chiefs need to do is kick a field goal. They kick a field goal, they win, and then everybody's complaining, oh, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah.
Buffalo could go for 2 when they score a touchdown.
Yeah, but it's not going to change what happens. Like, everybody's going to, no matter what the outcome is, people are going to complain about it. I think this is perfectly fine. I like that they differentiated this between the playoffs and the regular season. I think playoff games, you really need to try to decide who wins. Regular season games, it's nowhere near as important.
It's like I told you a couple months ago or whatever it was. I mean, I just think I think this is fine for most of the playoffs, but in the Super Bowl, I think they should play another 10-minute overtime period or something, because it's the last game of the year. So who cares about playing in a week? I mean, to be honest, in a perfect world, I guess that's probably what you would want, but you can't be doing that in playoff games because they got to play in a week. So, yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is. And then it's also some of these overtime games. It's like I can point to the team that lost and go, why didn't you beat them in regulation?
Right.
I mean, the Bills, they should have won. They should have won the game, and their coaches blew it. I don't know what the hell they were doing with 13 seconds. So, it is what it is. And I do feel like it's one of those things, like I agree with, people will complain about it. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, are you saying that you only would have been happy if the team that lost had won the game? Like, because I feel like basically what's going to happen is the first time this gets tested, which may be next season, something like that could happen where like the first team gets the ball, they score. The second team gets the ball, they score. Then the first team gets the ball, they go down and win the game. And then people could still be unhappy. So, yeah, like you said, it doesn't really solve the problem. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, I'm cool with it. I like how it creates more drama. It creates an opportunity for more cool stuff happening. But it's not, I don't know, it's not that really that.
Listen, the NFL loves it. Longer playoff games, more chances to jam more ads in your face. Like, this is typical of what you would do when you got a successful business and people can't get enough of it. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. When you're a drug dealer and you have heroin and they want more of it, this is what you do. I get it.
Yep.
I completely understand that. But it's not, this isn't something, this is a great sports radio topic because there's really no answer and there's really no reason to argue about it, but you might as well because you got time to fill. So,
I was, like I said, I was listening to Rich Eisen talk about it. He's just like, all the unintended consequences and all the decisions you got to make. And I'm like, you got to make coaching decisions in an NFL game. That's how it goes. Like, oh, there's pressure on you. Yeah, there's pressure on you. You're trying to win the game. What do you want? Like, what? I thought that's what we thought was cool about sports. There's pressure on you. You got to make decisions.
And it's not, and it's very rarely, if ever, going to come into play.
Yeah.
Like, it's statistically, the amount of overtime games in the playoffs is so statistically small, there's no point in even discussing it.
Yeah, and I will say this, I'll push back on the whole thing where people go, oh, well, you got to stop somebody. Dude, the way the NFL is nowadays, after 4 quarters, you're expected to stop somebody. Like, that's pretty hard. So,
yep.
Anyway.
You talked about Rich Eisen's bad take. So I thought this was a bad take that just kind of like not even kind of came out of left field as far as I'm concerned. So watching The Herd with Colin Cowherd, which just full disclosure, I think Colin is one of the best in the business. I think he does a great job with his show. But I disagree.
Every now and then he kind of goes off the rails, but
right. I disagreed with this segment though. He's had this. I've seen 2 or 3 of these now where he goes off. Fans are all excited because John Morant is kind of having a breakout season. It's his 3rd year, so he's kind of been really awesome this year. If you watched him, and he's really, really exciting. And so Colin just decides to go in on John Morant first. First, it was like complaining that, oh, well, people need to relax because, John Morant's just like Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook. He's not gonna win championships, and he's just really exciting, but he doesn't really help your team win. Because Memphis has been very good this season, and even with John Morant out, they've managed to win games anyway. And then he was basically saying it was kind of a straw man argument. He was like, John Morant's not the MVP, and people shouldn't be talking about him that way, and blah, blah, blah. And, I was confused because I was like, I'm following what's going on in the NBA.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about John Morant winning the MVP. the debate has been all season like Embiid was kind of the front runner. And then people look at Jokic's advanced statistics and the team that he's on, and they're like, oh, wow, what about Jokic? And now people are, people kind of put Giannis in the background, and now they're realizing, oh, Giannis is doing exactly what he did last year. Maybe we should vote for him. So it's between those three guys. Then there's kind of like Luka, kind of coming up behind them, Luka Doncic. And so I'm just like completely lost. There's nobody banging the drum for Ja Morant to win the MVP.
Yeah, he does that a lot. He'll make these straw man arguments. He's like, "You're telling me," and it's like, "No one's telling you that, dude. No."
Yeah, I don't know where this is coming from. Now, I completely disagree with, and I disagree with his thoughts about Ja Morant as if, well, Ja Morant's just another one of these guys who's really exciting and blah blah blah. I don't know. I watched Ja Morant play. He's much more traditional point guard than Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook or any of these other guys are. Like, He's much more of a distributor from what I see. Yeah, he's really athletic, but that's to me, that's on the side. That's side stuff. He's not like jacking up 25, 30 shots a game. He's not trying to get a whole bunch of rebounds and triple doubles and all of this nonsense. Like, to me, he seems like a regular point guard. Now, will he win titles? I mean, I don't know. I think it's
that's one of those things that gets annoying. It's like there's so many things that go into that you to blame a player for losing. Like, to me, if a player gets to the finals and then he plays like shit and they lose, okay, I think you can kind of blame him a little bit. But like, before a guy's even done anything, before he's even been in the playoffs, like you're gonna, that's a little, like Russell. I could see saying Russell Westbrook would never win a title after he lost to the Miami Heat, and you watched him play in the finals, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. But yeah, that's too soon.
Yeah, I mean, look, now listen, I realize the track record. If you look at the history of the NBA, right? If your best player is small, it's hard to win titles, right? The only teams that really pulled it off are the Warriors before they got Durant, the 1 year, and then the Pistons with Isaiah Thomas. They're the only teams that are really led by a smaller guard. Now, the caveat is those teams were loaded. They had all-stars all over the roster and good players everywhere. So, yeah, that's how you can do it. But yeah, I just think it's way too early for that. It's like criticizing Luka Doncic for not winning the title. It's like, Luka's 23, Ja's 22. Like, can we just?
I remember hearing that after they lost to the Clippers, after the Mavericks lost to the Clippers. Dan Patrick's like, yeah, when do we need to see the receipts? I'm like, dude, stop. Okay, he's made the playoffs 2 years in a row. The team around him's not very good. Just stop. Okay, I need to see the receipts.
Yeah, can we take it easy? Like, we just can't. It's unbelievable. Like, I understand LeBron and Durant having that standard. I get it. Like, it totally makes sense. They've been in the league for, 15 years each, and I get it. But it's like, yeah, I just thought it was kind of like ridiculous. Like, where is this coming from? What's with the Ja Morant slander? Like, I don't understand. What are you doing?
Well, the other NBA thing. So Nick Wright is convinced that the Bucks are going to breeze through the Eastern Conference playoffs, and they're not even going to get forced into a sixth game in any of the three series that they'll have to play.
Right.
And just like, dude, just stop. Okay, the Bucks, they're a really good team with an MVP level player, like probably an all-time great player. Okay, and then they have some nice pieces. And are they capable of getting to the finals again? Sure. But, like, did you watch them last year? Like, it's not going to be easy for them. They're not just going to steamroll over people. I mean, Giannis does what he does, and Drew Holiday, defensively really good pretty much all the time. Offensively, it comes and goes. Middleton, he's pretty good. Sometimes he can be really good, but, like, yeah, they just they try to play defense. They try to play a little, if they're down in a series or they're struggling in a game, they just try to play a little harder. It's not like they can play multiple different ways or something, you know? So, yeah, I mean, do you want to favor them to make it out of the Eastern Conference? Okay, I think I agree with that. You know, that's fine. But depending on who the matchup is, I don't think they're just going to breeze through the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and by favorite, you mean like gun to your head. Like if you put a gun to my head, all right, I'll pick Milwaukee. I don't feel
I'm not saying they're the prohibitive favorite.
Right. I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, no, they're not. Because look, they're a good team. They won the championship. That does not mean that they're a great team. They're not the 2001 Lakers. Okay, they're not just gonna like. Come on.
Yeah, they were down 2-0 twice in last year's playoffs. Like that's not the mark of a dominant team.
Yeah, Giannis is a dominant player, and I don't want to take any credit away from Giannis. He's really good. You know?
It would be different if Milwaukee won the title and then came into this season like we're going to kick everybody's ass, and they won 65 games. That'd be different. Phoenix, on the other hand, is doing that.
Yeah,
Phoenix is doing what you want a team that looks like they're the best team to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Eastern Conference is a mess. I don't know how, in the words of Public Enemy, you can't trust it. Can't trust any of these teams. I don't know how do you believe, in any of this stuff, because it's such a mess. Brooklyn is finally Kyrie Irving can play every game and they might get the 8th seed. Right now they're in 9th. I mean, I don't know. Like Philadelphia, the whole thing with James Harden, I don't know what I'm getting. Miami and Boston, they really don't even have two reliable offensive players. Like, I don't even know.
Well, by the way, the Miami Heat, who's the reliable offensive player late in a playoff game? Like, I don't even.
Right.
Jimmy Butler? Okay.
No, you're asking Tyler Hero to bail you out, and Tyler Hero just gets picked on defense. Every team just takes advantage of him. So I just don't know. It's going to be hard to keep Tyler Hero in games in fourth quarters because you need his offense, but he can't guard anybody. So yeah. I just, so what I want
Miami, they've had a really good season, but say they got to play Brooklyn in the first round, they could lose. Yeah. They could lose to Brooklyn.
Yeah. So I have a whole bunch of NBA topics. So let's talk about Brooklyn first. Okay. Listen, we've said on here, and I still feel this way. They got Kyrie, back now for every game. Great. He's not scoring 50 points a game anymore like he was when he played once a week. It's amazing how different that is. I don't believe Brooklyn can win 3 series in the Eastern Conference coming from the 7th to the 8th seed. Yeah, no, I just don't. I think it's going to be too difficult, too much. Now, but that being said, everyone that's hating on Brooklyn like they're not any good needs to slow down. Could they win 1 series? Absolutely. If they got the right matchup, could they maybe win 2? Maybe. Like if I'm Miami or I'm Boston, I'm taking if you're asking me, gun to my head, I'm taking Brooklyn against either one of those two teams in the first round. I'm absolutely
the NBA. Who's got the more talented players? That's usually who wins in the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah,
you're not going to physical. It's hard to physical defense your way against those guys because I thought it was a really good point Chris Broussard made on Colin's show. He's like, in the playoffs, you know what everybody's going to do.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter if you know everybody knows what Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to do. You can't stop them anyway.
Yeah.
So, now that being said, I think as the playoffs go on, I just think it's going to be too much. Like last year, like everybody's like, well, if Kevin Durant's foot wasn't on the line, I'm not sure they would have won the next series.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Durant was playing 45 minutes a game.
Yep.
Against Atlanta, who was a much younger, much more athletic team. And it's not like Brooklyn, Brooklyn was okay on defense, but they weren't great.
Yeah.
So, I don't think Brooklyn can win the title. I think that's just too much to ask. But I don't think it's too much to ask. They win in the playoffs and make some noise and end somebody's season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I've been like from the beginning of the year. Colin has been like ripping on Brooklyn, like I don't, and I'm like, to some extent, I get it because Kyrie Irving wasn't playing and James Harden was kind of not giving a shit, and Steve Nash, I don't know if he's a really good coach, and whatever else, but it's like, yeah, I mean, just say it out loud: Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Okay. If they're playing Miami, they're better than anyone on Miami, anybody on Miami. They're way better than anyone Miami has. Okay. So that's like, who do you think? I mean, who do you think probably wins that? Even though Miami's got home court advantage, like, so, I mean, Miami's half court offense is like middle of the pack, and the playoffs are all about half court offense.
Now, and that being said, okay, Kevin Durant had 55 points last night and they lost.
That's true.
And it wasn't really competitive. Atlanta really dominated them. So that's why I don't think over 2 months of playoffs you just can't do it. It's just too much. But in the first round, can they blow through the team and beat them in 5? Yeah, they can. So I think like I said, I've been saying the whole season, if Kyrie is able to play all the games, that changes things. And it does. And, the people talking about, well, Ben Simmons coming back, blah, blah, blah. Ben Simmons is not.
Are you counting on him coming back? At this point, I'm like.
No, even if he comes back, there's no, what do you think you're getting from him?
Meaningful minutes in any of these games. Like what,
Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Simmons, Ben Simmons and James Harden. Okay. This trade was made 2 months ago. Yeah, 2 months ago, February. Okay. And I was completely against it from both sides. I never understood any of the justifications for it from either end. Okay.
Yep. On
Brooklyn's side, we'll just go back over this. On Brooklyn's side, I don't know how you can depend on Ben Simmons to do anything. He's trying to get $20 million back from the 76ers or whatever now. He's filed a grievance with the league. And he's got an injured back and a herniated disc, so I don't think he can play anyway. But regardless, Brooklyn.
Where the hell did he get a herniated disc from? He wasn't even playing.
Yeah, I mean, he's had back issues in the past. This isn't new. But it's kind of like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, what are you doing? How did you manage to – that tells me he wasn't in proper conditioning like he should have been. That's what that means to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
Simmons doesn't give a shit about basketball? No. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. So Brooklyn basically traded James Harden for Seth Curry, which is not a bad move the way James Harden's playing.
Right.
And so from Philadelphia's side, now you get this James Harden. He comes out the first couple games, looks like he's ready to go. And now he basically, if he's not getting fouled, he's not doing anything.
Yeah.
So the only way Philadelphia has a shot to do anything is if James Harden's awesome. They have to have 2 awesome guys on their team. Otherwise, the rest of the team's not good enough.
Yeah.
You're not winning anything with this team. So this trade is, to me, it's a dismal failure at this point. And I think both teams, I think, are, Brooklyn, I think, going forward, you could say maybe they're in a better position, maybe. Philadelphia's problem is they have to now sign James Harden to a huge contract.
Well, look, Brooklyn, they could have been a championship contender if Kyrie Irving's stupid ass hadn't have fucked it up the last couple of years. Taking a sabbatical, not getting vaccinated, Just, I mean, and that's what you heard. The backstory was that James Harden was like, "What the fuck is it with this guy?" Like, and just, I mean, I can't put it this way. You can't tell me that if Kyrie Irving hadn't have been playing every time that he was when he was able to, and they had just been blowing people away and winning, I feel like James Harden would still be there. Because if they're winning games, you just kind of go, whatever, we're winning games. Who cares? About Kyrie Irving being a nutcase or whatever else. Right. So good job, Kyrie Irving. You just blew up a championship contender.
So Philadelphia could have 2 years in a row, one of their best players just completely implode in the playoffs. Last year, Simmons did it. This year, Harden could do it. Philly could be completely screwed.
Yep.
They could be getting a worse. I don't think Brooklyn got a very good haul on this trade. I mean, they at least got Seth Curry, but I don't think Brooklyn did very well with this trade. I mean, if your goal is just get rid of James Harden, okay, fine. But Ben Simmons has 3 more years left.
Yeah.
So,
and also, you got to figure he's not going to get better. I mean, he's going to get worse. He's never been in the best condition. He's already 32. So a guard who's not in the best condition, in his nearing his mid 30s, like, okay, like that's, and if he's not going to be playing at forget all-star level. He's got to play at like MVP level. I mean,
and,
that championship contender.
Yeah, and Daryl Morey made this mistake. He traded for Chris Paul and then gave him a gigantic extension, and it didn't work in Houston anyway. So it's just kind of like this is potential for disaster.
Yep. Say they lose in the second round again. I mean, aren't you just going to be like, oh my God, we fucked this up? Like, how long is Joel Embiid's foot going to hold up? So.
Yeah, it's really it's pretty sad because they've kind of ruined, and by the way, a lot of this out of ego. Like Philadelphia really ruined this just because Daryl Morey wanted to prove a point. And it's like literally like look at what Dallas got for Porzingis.
Yeah.
If Philadelphia had just done that deal, traded Ben Simmons for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, you're telling me they wouldn't be better off? Like, yeah. It's just it's amazing to me that it's like that trade, like, and it's worked out pretty well for Dallas. Dinwiddie's given them good minutes, Bertans not so much, but they did what they needed to do, and Philadelphia was unwilling to do that. And what did they get?
Yeah,
what'd you get? So, anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about, this is another Colin Cowherd special take here, is he is on the Lakers have to trade Anthony Davis.
Oh God,
bandwagon. So listen,
good God,
listen. The Lakers season has obviously been a disaster. Okay, yep. They're right now. They're not even in the top 10 in the West. They're 14 games under 500 or whatever.
I think they're going to miss the play. LeBron's not playing today. They're playing Denver right now.
Yeah. So they're probably done. And so, I think that, what do the Lakers do, right? The Lakers had a team that had won the championship, and they decided to blow it up for God knows what reason.
It's really stupid. I don't get it.
To get Russell Westbrook and to do all this stuff, and it just hasn't worked. So, I mean, obviously, the Lakers were trying to move Russell Westbrook before the deadline. I would imagine he's got 1 year left. I would imagine the Lakers are going to figure out some way to get him off the team. So, so your plan is we're going to trade Anthony Davis. Well, Anthony Davis has been injured a lot, especially the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you're getting for him?
Well, again, that's one of those things that, like, in sports talk radio and just the talking head stuff on TV in general, like, before you say a team needs to trade somebody, tell me what they're getting. Because if you're just saying, well, I don't like this guy, they need to get rid of him. If you're not going to get something better or comparable, then what the hell is the point of trading the guy? It's a ridiculous take. It's like complaining about a general manager saying, well, he hasn't done enough. And I'm like, well, what moves should he not have made, or what should he have done differently? Well, I don't know. He just should have done more. Well, that's a pretty lame ass take because you're not giving me an alternative.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, your plan to fix the Lakers is trade Anthony Davis for what? What move is out there? I looked at it today. I went through the top 50 players in the NBA. Right? I just went through every guy and looked at what are the trade possibilities. Right? There's a lot of teams that they already have a big guy, or they're not going to take Anthony Davis. The only 2 guys that I think are possible are Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal.
And how does that solve their problems?
Right. And let's say you pull that off. First of all, I don't think Portland would give up a whole lot for Anthony Davis. Like, teams are not going to forego their future.
Trailblazers, you want to send us your injured big guy? Okay, sure. Let's do that.
Right. We're going to trade the best player in our franchise history for Anthony Davis. And Washington, same thing. Like,
well, no, I was just pointing that out because of, Sam Bowie.
Right.
And just.
Very good point. Just what Portland needs. Another injured big guy. Just what Portland needs. The fans have been traumatized enough, for God's sakes. It's 50 years of this crap. Yeah. So, and the other thing, there's not a move out there that I would make, and teams are not going to give up a boatload of stuff for Anthony Davis. They're just not. So let's say you trade Anthony Davis. Let's say you get Damian Lillard, whatever, pie in the sky. How does that solve your problem? Like, I don't get it. You're not going to win the championship with. So to me, if you're the Lakers, listen, you don't have much of a choice. You got to try to get. You're going to take some bad contracts back for Russell Westbrook. Try to get a couple of guys that fit. At least try to fit something decent with LeBron, right? They're not going to be great because you're trying to just dump Westbrook's contract. Like, to me, I'm like, trade Westbrook back to Oklahoma City. Give him another first-round pick. Oklahoma City's a waste station for every big contract in the NBA anyway. Oklahoma City will buy him out. He can go to another team. Like, that won't be a problem. Who cares? Get something back from them. Now, Oklahoma City doesn't have much to give you, but regardless, like, there's answers here. It makes no sense to me that you're going to trade Anthony Davis and that'll solve everything.
Yeah.
How? It's not solving anything. So the other NBA topic that I'm stealing this from Bill Simmons' podcast that, Phoenix is kind of blowing everybody away. They have an 8-game lead on everybody else in the league for the best record. And I think, especially the Western Conference, with how weak the Western Conference is this year, I think we have to, we need to take a moment and just say, listen, Phoenix should, as long as Chris Paul stays relatively healthy, Phoenix should win the West. There's too many question marks with all these other teams, and Phoenix is playing awesome.
Right.
I have concerns Chris Paul is going to get banged up throughout the playoffs at some point. But
he will, but it's just, to be honest, it's just a question of how many games does he miss? How much is he, how much does it hamper his ability to, to deal with stuff? That's kind of the main, because in order, say they got to play Milwaukee again, in order for them to do that, like, the other guys got to play better than they did, in the last few games of the finals last year. But you still need Chris Paul orchestrating stuff. So,
yeah, I think, barring some kind of crazy injury or circumstance, Phoenix is going to roll whoever they play in the first round. And then, they're playing a 4 or 5 matchup with probably Denver or Utah or somebody like that. I think they beat them in 5. And then we're talking about who's in the conference finals. And I have no idea what is going to happen because Golden State, Steph Curry is still out for Golden State. And I don't know how you could trust any of these other teams to do anything. I think Memphis is a good team, but they're too young. Young teams don't win in the playoffs. And so, I think Phoenix is the overwhelming favorite. And the other thing is Phoenix went to the finals last year. It's not like this is the first time and we have concerns. No, they're not going to be afraid of.
And then the other games they lost were, Game 3 was bad. Game 3 and Game 6 were bad, but Game 4 and Game 5, they were in it, late into the fourth quarter. So,
yeah. So, we got about a week left of NBA regular season games. So, I'm hoping to see. I think the way the seeding works out is going to be very interesting, especially in the Eastern Conference, because I have no idea who's gonna be able to beat who's going to be healthy, who's going to be. So this will be quite fascinating.
Yeah. It's kind of in some way. It's weird. In some ways, you could say maybe it's unpredictable, but in other ways, no, we kind of got it. It's probably going to be Phoenix. And, like you said, gun to the head, probably Milwaukee. They're the only team that I could possibly trust. And even them, I'm kind of like, but I trust them enough.
I think the seeding is going to have a lot to do with it. Like if Milwaukee gets the 2 seed and they get to play like Toronto or Cleveland in the first round, they'll be in pretty good shape. But you never know. Brooklyn could be the, you never know. Brooklyn could be the 7 seed. I have no idea. We could be looking at Milwaukee, Brooklyn in the first round. I have no. That's the crazy part. It's like there's all this weirdness. A team like Brooklyn should not be the 7th or the 8th seed. That's in a normal year. That's not what would happen. So it just kind of throws a monkey wrench into all this stuff. So before we go, I had a couple of shout outs. First of all, I watched Duke and Coach K play Coach's last game last night. They lost to North Carolina in the Final Four. So he's been coaching there basically as long as I've been alive, which is
40 years,
which is crazy. He took over in 1980. I was born in 1979. So, I was a Duke fan, especially late 80s when the Duke couldn't get over the hump. And then I loved the Bobby Hurley, Christian Laettner, Grant Hill teams, obviously. And then the Jason Williams, Mike Dunleavy team that won it in 01. So, yeah, I've been following Duke a long time. I've definitely enjoyed all the players that have come through there. And, Duke lost a tough game. It was a game they could have won. They just kind of, but college basketball is pretty much haphazard at this point. Like, because everybody's so young, you have no idea what's really going to happen.
Right.
So, hell of a career, hell of a job, 13 Final Fours, 5 championships, so I just wanted to point that out. More championships than any of the coaches at North Carolina combined in the same period of time. So,
how many national championships does North Carolina have?
They have a bunch, but they don't. In the last, since in the last 40 whatever years, they don't have 5.
2, and then Roy Williams got 2.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Jesus.
So that's pretty crazy. The other thing I want to say was the United States men's national soccer team made it to World Cup. Qualified for the World Cup. It wasn't a very impressive performance, losing 2-0 to Costa Rica, but they're in. So that's all that really matters. Thank goodness. Like, it was gonna, it would have really sucked if they didn't make the World Cup after not making it in 2018. So, which is kind of cool. The World Cup is going to be from like the end of November to the end of December. So we're going to have it during the middle of football season. So it's not in the summer, no, because it's in Qatar. So they waited until it's not as hot, because Qatar is like the surface of the sun.
What? How far ahead are they? So what time are a lot of the games?
So they're 7 hours ahead of us. So in the first round, there's going to be, for the first 2 weeks or whatever, there's like 4 games a day. It's like 5 a.m., 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 2 p.m. So they'll have the U.S. games on at 2 p.m. pretty much. 2 p.m. Eastern, that is. So, So we get to see the United States is in a group with England and Iran, and then either, I think, Scotland or Wales. So England is really good. They made the finals of the Euros 2 years last year, I think. So England would be a tough team for the U.S., but the other 2 teams they have a pretty good chance to beat. So we don't have a group with 2 dominant teams in the.
So usually with the U.S. team, it's like get out of the group, and if you win a game or 2 beyond that, that's a pretty good That's a pretty good run. So
so they have an excellent chance to get out of the group, and maybe do something after that. So, but it's nice to it's just nice to be in. I love the World Cup. It's a really fun event to watch. It's for a month every 4 years, and really cool. So looking forward to that. And
I thought it was. I thought it was coming up in the summertime. I was starting to get excited about it already.
Usually it would be in June or July.
Yeah, July.
Usually is when it is, but because of the where it is. But and then in 26 it's in the United States. So
where?
Well, it's going to be a whole bunch of places. There's like 12 sites or something. So I think Miami was one of them. Miami, Dallas, New York, Los Angeles. So there were a whole bunch of because when it's in your country, it's not in one place. It's throughout in all the soccer stadiums in the country. So that should be really cool. Looking forward to it. But yeah, that's all I had. Looking forward to the NBA playoffs coming up. And the NFL draft coming up at the end of the month. The draft is like April 28th, I think. Okay. 27th, 28th, something like that.
I'm trying to think of what the exciting part about that is. I mean, I guess teams are going to end up taking those 2 quarterbacks in the first round. But
Yeah, I mean, there'll definitely be some quarterbacks taken too high. There's a whole. It's a weird. It's strange because there's a whole bunch of teams that have multiple first round picks. The Jets, the Giants both have two. I think Green Bay has two. Detroit has two. The Eagles have three. So there's like 12, 13 picks that are from like 5 teams.
Hmm.
So that will be it'll be interesting to see what happens. And yeah, somebody will take a quarterback too high. But it'll mostly be, especially early on, it'll be defensive line, pass rushers, and
yeah,
maybe some receivers.
right. All right. All right. That's all I got.
All right, folks. 31 in the books.